Hello, I'm Eric Singer. This is Argonne's Public Affairs, Science, and Technology Past Fusion Cell Flash Briefing. Public information officers, listen up. Really, listen up. Published research could help you to connect with the deaf and hearing-impaired community. The study is called We Don't Hear You, Assessing Phonocentrism in Emergency Public Information to Engage the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Community. Derrec Becker, Chief of Public Information and External Affairs, South Carolina Emergency Management Division, is the author. Thanks for joining us, Derrec.
Happy to be here.
All right, Derrec, explain this research project.
Sure. Well, as part of the Emergency Management Institute's Master Public Information program, we had to do a research project, and it's the result of several years, several disasters in South Carolina, working for the South Carolina Emergency Management Division, and actually being engaged with the deaf community in the state reaching out and saying, we want to be partners in emergency management, and a combination of actual logistics of trying to get the message out and some personal fascination being a broadcaster. It was a form of communication or trying to reach somebody who cannot hear you. It was something that was completely foreign to me. So we said, let's sit down, let's conduct a survey, let's ask the deaf community what they want, what they need, what some of the current challenges are, and it went from there.
Derrec, what did you learn?
Yeah. So we conducted a survey of the deaf community, and actually mainly in South Carolina, but we had respondents really from all over the country. We asked how involved are the emergency management or public safety agencies in your area? What types of emergency alerts do you like to receive? What's the best way for you to receive emergency information? We even looked into sentence structure or message structure. What do you like to be? How do you like to be told what's going on and what you should do? Do you want to be told what to do, followed by what's going on? Do you want to have an explanation of what's going on and then follow up with what you want to do? And the results actually were a little surprising to us, really. We found first that about half of the people surveyed showed that the public safety agencies in their area were somewhat engaged with their deaf community. We even asked, is the deaf community very organized in your area? And it was about, 50% yes and no. And so one of the things we found was the organization of the deaf community, whether or not they had an association, they were committed, they were connected, and so forth, was directly tied to whether or not the public safety agencies were able to engage with that community. So tapping into community leaders, just like any other aspect of emergency management, is absolutely essential. On the public communication side, on the delivering emergency information, when people have to get information so that they can make informed decisions about their personal safety, we found that on the multiple choice questions, when they were given several options between sign language interpreters, text messages, social media posts, the survey respondents invariably chose text messages to receive emergency information. And so you might be thinking, aha, okay, that's it, we've got it. We can send people text messages and deaf people will hear it. Nope, that's not the case, because when we factor into the open-ended questions, yes, text messages are a venue, but invariably the open-ended questions revolve around providing sign language interpreters in press conferences and emergency events like that. So that was one thing that was very interesting to us. On message structure, invariably, we found that the people who responded to the survey want to be told what to do first, followed by reasons why and what's happening. So a typical message might be, evacuate now due to Hurricane Florence making landfall in 3 days. So start with the action, what you need people to do, and follow it up with supporting information. So it kind of confirms that old news belief of lead with the most important information and follow it up with supporting facts. And so it was a first step. The survey was a first step. We also looked at some research that was out there, not a whole lot in terms of emergency communications specifically with the deaf community, but we did find that out of all the different types of people in terms of access and functional needs, English as a second language, people who need a little bit of extra help during emergencies, the deaf community was the most underserved in terms of emergency information.
So, Derrec, structural changes following this study, do you foresee something in South Carolina based on what you learned?
A combination of factors, but we have already instituted a number of changes in parallel with this study. Is our language is much simpler than it used to be in terms of delivering emergency information. Instead of urging and encouraging, we might still do a little bit of that, but it's now residents should and must do this now. It's easier to remember for us. It's easier to translate into multiple formats. It's easier to put into different types of multimedia products, and the message travels much further. In terms of providing deaf and hard of hearing services, we now have sign language interpreters as a part of every press conference, even for press conferences like severe winter weather preparedness week and so forth. And so during our most recent disaster, Hurricane Dorian, we had ASL, American Sign Language interpreters, on duty 24 hours a day. Now, you might say, well, that might seem like a lot, but you just don't know when you will have to deliver emergency information. We've also scaled back a little bit on, and this might be surprising, on Facebook Live. We won't go and do a Facebook Live or any type of live social media broadcasting unless we have a sign language interpreter there, simply because closed captioning systems on those sites are not that great, or they're outrageously expensive and a little bit beyond our budget.
Anything you'd like to add?
The most important thing that we learned, and the biggest asset, has been working with the deaf community, having the leaders of the deaf community in South Carolina saying we want to be partners in emergency management. We haven't gone out and reinvented a new channel or a new means of communication, but what we've done is empowered the existing channels of information that people use every single day to go about their daily lives. We've empowered those channels with our emergency information. And so anytime there's a crisis, that critical information people need comes from a place they already trust. They typically don't have to go outside of what they would normally do to get information, and that's the result of partnerships and working with people that trust us and just developing those relationships over time.
All right. Thank you very much, Derrec, for joining us. And that was Derrec Becker, who is the Chief of Public Information and External Affairs, South Carolina Emergency Management Division. If you'd like to hear previous Alexa Flash briefings that include best practices and tools to help your organization, like the Argonne Past Fusion Cell Facebook page, or connect on Twitter and Instagram at Past Fusion Cell. You can also check out the Past Fusion Cell's online toolkit for useful templates and information. Go to pastfusion.gss.anl.gov.